Today on 10-Minute IT Jams, we're joined by Shiven Ramji, who is the Chief Product Officer at Okta. Okta gives its customers a neutral, powerful, and extensible platform that puts identity at the heart of your stack. No matter what industry, use case, or level of support customers need, Okta has you covered. Shiven joins us today to tell us more about Okta and give us some insight into the new research that they have conducted. Thank you for coming along, Shiven, and welcome to the Jam.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. Excuse me, and also excited to talk about some recent research that we've published with the audience and share a little bit about all the things that we've learned. Maybe I should kick off with what you did a little bit of an intro of what we do, but maybe give a few examples to make it more clear or perhaps even relatable. So for folks who don't know what we do, the easiest way to understand is, we are the technology that powers the login box. Now, you may be going to a news website, maybe going to a sports destination or watching your favorite TV shows. There's a good chance, or even doing some financial services work, going to your bank. There's a good chance that the first encounter will be with a login box, and so we provide all of the seamless and secure access to that login box. Now, there are two major use cases that we solve for. The first one is in the context of you as an employee. So if you're working for a company, you're trying to access internal applications or SaaS applications, we provide a seamless and secure access. So that body of use cases is essentially workforce identity. So that's one set of use cases. The other set of use cases tends to be one that perhaps all of us are familiar with. This is the concept of, when you're logging into a website or to your bank, as a consumer, there's a whole host of services that we provide to give you a seamless, safe, and secure access. Now, the conversation we're going to have today is really in the second category of use cases, which is consumer or customer identity. And you may be thinking, well, so what's new in the world of customer identity? Why is this a topic? Why should we talk about it? Well, oftentimes when companies or brands are implementing customer identity, you often have these competing forces, if you will. Often you're trying to balance how seamless or convenient it is. You also want to make sure it is secure, right, for your consumers, your customers. And then finally, you also want to make sure that you abide by privacy laws, which change quite a bit depending on the geography that you're in, or depending on the geography your customers are accessing your products. So we commissioned this study, which was in partnership with Statista, and it's with about 20,000 consumers globally across 14 countries. And obviously, we have quite a few countries in the Asia Pacific region also, which we'll go into. And it's sort of a first look into what are some trends, including the ones that I talked about, these competing forces, and sort of what's the interplay between these, and what's the sentiment of consumers, even the state of passwords, and the like. And the reason why this is important for brands is that we want to really demystify some of these challenges that they have, and then frankly, just drive awareness and educate them so that they can deliver these experiences without compromising any of those competing factors.
Well, I guess let's just get straight into the research then. I understand It's called Customer Identity Trends, as you've already mentioned. What were the key findings of this?
Okay, so the first section that I wanted to talk about, first insight that I wanted to touch on is around accounts. And what I mean by that is all of us have a lot of accounts. We saw that from all of the respondents in the study, regardless of region, most consumers maintain anywhere between 10 to 20 active accounts at any one time. Now, notice that my emphasis here was on active, which means you have a ton of dormant accounts. And dormant accounts essentially lead to accounts that are not being actively maintained by you. So things like password hygiene or other relevant updates. And so what that does, it opens the door for a lot more security risks, both for the consumer, but also for the companies, because this leads to you may have passwords that were breached before, and so that is a risk. When you go back into dormant accounts, you also have to go to reset passwords, which is often a point of frustration and friction for customers. So that was sort of one big insight around the state of accounts. Now, I mentioned passwords, right? I talked about the password reset flow. There is this hidden cost of passwords. And what I mean by that is consumers, we've seen from the study, will actually spend a whole lot more when they don't encounter a lot of friction, right? And passwords, unfortunately, are a source of friction, right? And by the way, this holds true across industries, and it holds true across regions. Essentially, consumers are not happy or particularly frustrated by the usage of usernames and passwords. And then the last one that I would talk about, which is really interesting also, is that we found that consumers actually want control over convenience. And what I mean by that is, while consumers love personalized experiences, they really want to have control over their own data. And so this varies by these insights vary by industry and even perhaps by region. And so industries like financial services, insurance, healthcare, and even government services, there is a lot more sensitive data. And so consumers are very aware of the data and are very wary of how the data is being used. If you go to, and consumers, especially in Europe and North America, over-index on this notion of control. Interestingly, in Asia Pacific regions, we saw that consumers were actually open to the notion of maybe giving more data in exchange for some convenience. Now, this wasn't uniform, but in industries such as like hospitality or travel, they're willing to give more information in return for a better experience.
Now, why is it that you think that customers are wanting more control of their data?
I think, I've been tracking some of these insights and sentiments for a few years. I think if you had looked at this data a few years ago, there was low awareness of what is actually happening with your data. But I think today we live in a world, there is a lot of consumer awareness that companies are collecting your information and that they're doing something with it. Now, this notion of collecting information, doing something with it, isn't necessarily, it's not a binary choice in that they don't want you to. I think they're okay to provide more information. In fact, one of the things that brands and companies want to do online is they want to give you a personalized experience. So imagine if you share some information and in return, you will get a better experience, maybe better recommendations, maybe more targeted offers, then you are more willing to give them the information. But unfortunately, you will be surprised. There are so many brands online to this day that ask for so much information when you're signing up for an account. And this is where consumers are wary that, well, I'm giving all this information. How is it being used? And so we typically recommend customers do progressive profiling, meaning ask for information in batches over time and ask for information in return for a better experience. And unless consumers see that, they're sort of wary of sharing data. And frankly, this is why they care for control and for privacy reasons.
Now, you already touched on it a little bit earlier, but why does the APJ region have similar results to the rest of the world?
Yeah, so I think we in terms of the control of data, we saw that there were some, like I said, I think there are some industries where the APJ regions and markets were open to sharing more information. And I think this is because the payback in convenience or experience is worth it. And so And I think you see this behavior, especially in those markets, you know, in many of the countries, your email is your primary sort of way of interacting with brands. In a lot of markets in the Asia Pacific region, tends to be your phone number, right? And there's actually a chance that you may not even have an email as your primary mechanism of communication. So you know, there is the consumers there are more tuned to opting into sharing their phone number in exchange for, you know, doing something online, getting an offer, and so again, it's all done in the name of some payback, whether it's convenience, it could be experience, it could be an offer. And so we see that the you know, some of the data or the insights, consumer behavior is different in the market.
Now, I guess finally to finish off, based on these results, what should businesses be doing?
So there's a couple of things. That's a great question. So a couple of things that we advise customers to do. So one, it's 2023. You can provide a seamless experience. And so think of using things like passwordless experiences. So using biometrics that are available on your on devices and phones, so that you are not encumbering consumers with usernames and passwords. So delivering a password experience is possible, and products like ours and others in the market offer that to brands, and so we should be able to do that. The other thing related to this is later this in the next few months, all of these platforms such as Apple, Google, Microsoft will be supporting passkeys. So this idea that, again, you're removing usernames and passwords, you can have the seamless access between devices too, so you can continue your journey and experiences, is really, really critical. We recommend customers to sort of think through their consumer journeys. And this sounds like really, really basic. And yet so many companies don't do that. And so there are so many ways, to provide a good sign in and sign up experience, and then later to have a much more progressive a profiling experience where you're collecting information, making sure that that it's the service is delivered, or the recommendations are delivered to benefit the consumers. And then I think finally, the last thing I wanted to highlight is, you know, when you're doing all of these, there's this constant concern that, are you compromising security in favor of convenience? And I think the important thing, and the thing that we advise and help our customers with, is that you don't have to sacrifice on security. We have a ton of security features that we provide that allow our customers to have peace of mind that their consumers will be safe. So for example, if you are using passwords and if they were breached in the dark web, we have a breach password detection service that you can deploy. There's lots of big scripted bot attacks. We provide protection against large scripted attacks, right? So these are some examples of the types of things you may be thinking about in terms of the impact to your consumer. We can provide services and features that help you protect against that.
Well, it has been a pleasure having you on the Jam, Shiven, and learning more about Okta and your new research. We look forward to hearing more from Okta in the very near future.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And go download the report.
Yeah. Where would they be able to find that report, Shiven?
So you can find that on okta.com and you search for Customer Identity Trends 2023, and you should be able to get an online interactive report, but you can also download the report for offline consumption.